Jerusalem, the holiest place in the Holy Land. Tourists from all over the world flock to this city to be filled with the Spirit of God. They come by the busload to breathe the air of Abraham and King David, to see where Jesus was born, where he walked and lived, to go back to the time of the prophets and lose themselves in holy ecstasy until suddenly they feel different.
Good day, mate. Welcome.
This is John Lichtenberg. He used to be an air conditioning installer in Brisbane, Australia. He came to Jerusalem 3 years ago and stuck around to wait for the second coming of Christ.
What would happen if Jesus did come back today? Hallelujah.
John has the Jerusalem syndrome, a well-documented medical condition where sufferers identify a little too strongly with figures from the Bible. In John's case, King David. The Jerusalem syndrome was first identified in 1982 by Dr. Yair Barel of Kfar Shaul Mental Hospital.
Jerusalem is something ideal. It's not a normal city. For the majority of the person, it's something divine. It's a place, the only place that where you can speak with God.
Over the past 12 years, there have been nearly 500 reported cases of the Jerusalem syndrome.
We have about 40 tourists in a year in hospitalization. Of course, we see a lot in outpatient basis.
As a resident of Jerusalem, how does it make you feel about your city?
Oh, it's a very crazy city. It's a city where crazy persons arrive to live here. And in some cases, the city makes people crazy.
Meet Jerry. He was once a firefighter in suburban Iowa. He and his family came out to Jerusalem to celebrate Christmas one year and never left.
I was a full-time firefighter. I had my own construction business, as a building house. My wife was a registered nurse. I just built a big fancy house and had my vehicles all paid, you know. I had car phones.
Now they live in a tent on some of Jerusalem's hottest real estate, a hillside where the apocalypse is supposed to start.
I gave it all up to do this.
The Jerusalem syndrome is so widespread that everyone in town seems to know the symptoms, including psychiatrist Eli Wittstrom.
There was a guy who was living in a hotel. He went to the chef, to the kitchen, and he demanded to prepare the last meal.
We've had them by the dozens who claim to be the two witnesses spoken of in the book of Revelation.
They may have adopted sort of robes and turbans and sandals.
So they forget about English, they don't know English anymore, and they speak tongues.
It's a case of one girl who just stripped herself and walked around naked.
He fasted for 40 days with no food, just water, 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 water.
We had one case where the fellow even tried to eat his shoes.
They hear voices, they had visions, and usually they prepare in a way that they has to be contained, they has to be taken to a mental hospital.
Right back to Kfar Shaul Mental Hospital and Dr. Barel.
What type of people does it affect?
Oh, one of the interesting things is that from 42 cases, 1 Jew, 1 Catholic, 40 Protestants.
This is the day.
I wanted to observe a normal tourist in the early stages of the Jerusalem syndrome. So I decided to go undercover with a Protestant group from Ohio. As we toured the city, I watched for tourists who were on the edge.
Me? Oh, I like that camel too, buddy. We'd just get on that thing and ride up and down we go.
Tourists like Jim.
You ever been on a camel ride?
If you were in the Holy Sepulchre and you heard a little voice in your head saying, "You are the second coming of Jesus Christ," what would you do?
I have no idea. That might be a great, great feeling beyond.
Or Bob.
It's a tree exactly like this is where the crown of thorns came from.
He wanted to make himself a crown of thorns.
They talk about thorns over there and they don't realize they're so big and as this is right here. They think of wee little jaggers or something.
I feel God is speaking to me.
And there was Earl and his 2 grandsons at the Western Wall.
So where were you when the Lord spoke to you?
We were on the balcony of our room at the Ramada Inn here in town. Hallelujah.
Let's go.
Hallelujah.
Praise the Lord.
Then it happened. Word came an American tourist had come down with the Jerusalem syndrome, so I rushed over to his hostel where my friend Dr. Witztum was making an evaluation.
I saw the resurrection of the dead outside my efficiency apartment, and I'm ready to start serving the Lord as soon as I can.
His name was Joe Kuhn, and he came from South Carolina.
One of the things that was revealed to me was that the chosen people of God were all dead. The Hebrews were all dead. And in order to fulfill that prophecy, they would all have to be raised from the dead.
When the time comes, you'll be helping to raise the Hebrews from their graves?
I think I can fulfill those prophecies, yes.
While Joe showed all the classic symptoms, he was a relatively harmless casualty, especially compared to the most famous case of the Jerusalem syndrome, a rock musician from Waco, Texas.
The God of gods.
David Koresh decided he was the Messiah on a visit to Jerusalem in 1983. Fortunately, most sufferers don't end up like him. They either turn into harmless religious eccentrics like King David, or they snap out of the syndrome altogether and go back to their old lives. And I'm happy to report that no one from my tour group went home any crazier than they'd arrived. This time,